Smile in my shoes, listen to my blues. I stand before you, resilient, stronger than power, soft as a flower. I know the hour, I am the times. It's the strength for me, it's the strength, it's the legacy.
Hi, I'm Gwen McKinney, and I'm celebrating November, the season of thanks and giving. And our theme for this month is Give Back, Give Black, celebrating our philanthropy. And so we'll kick off our show with a clip from LaTosha Brown, who, as a philanthropist, has dedicated herself to Southern Black girls and women. Then we'll also celebrate 5 super givers: Madam C.J. Walker, Asiala McCarty, Susan Burton, and Rihanna. And learn more about C.J. Walker in a conversation with our colleague Tracy McGee and Alelia Bundles, author, biographer, and great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker. So this has been an intensive election season that we're wrapping up. And with all intense moments, really important to give back and to provide the care to yourself that you give to others. Our friend and civic leader, Solandra Benton of Florida, will share how that's working for her. And then we'll wrap up the show with Our Joy, a tribute that we should all pursue. So thanks for watching and enjoy our showcast.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. You know, that's a song that my grandmother loved. It was one of her it was actually her favorite song. It was also Fannie Lou Hamer's favorite song. And it's one of my favorite songs as a child. That and Jesus Loves Me, those were my favorite songs to sing in Sunday school. But I'm raising that because I do believe that part of the reason why girls and doing this work with girls is so important to me is I see them as light into the world. I see them as light bearers. That I believe that when you make the world safer for a girl, you will make a safer world. That ultimately that is what the idea of literally kind of the impetus of creating that. You know, in about close to 7 years ago, there was a study that came out called Unequal Lives. This report was commissioned by the Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative. And so in this report of Unequal Lives, it talks about, this report is probably about 10 years old now, that of the almost $5 billion in resources coming to the southern states, that less than 1% of those resources were going towards programs that supported women and girls. That is preposterous. That at the end of the day, not only were the majority in this area, and that wasn't just Black women, that was women and girls of all races. And so my initial response is I wanted to organize philanthropy and write an op-ed and just tell them about themselves. And so I was infuriated about like looking at this data and the numbers. And so Gwen, I actually went and I got in the shower. I was calming my nerves, and there's something about water and quiet. So I am a person of faith. And so as I was standing there in that water, I heard so clearly, you could do that and complain, or you could help lead the way. And I was like, oh. And then I just started getting a download. I started getting this vision, this big vision I couldn't even get my arms around. And it was coming so fast and so intensely to me that I jumped out the shower. I couldn't even dry off. Like I remember writing on the paper. The ideas were coming to me so fast. I writing on the paper was getting wet. I was like, oh my goodness, I hope I can maintain kind of these notes. And so what I like, literally what came to my spirit was to create this initiative called Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium that would be a self-determination model, that everything from the inception to the execution of our programs, to the evaluation, to the shaping and the forming of the programs would be done by Southern women and girls in the South. That we would actually show that we literally are our own solution drivers. We're not just doing this work to make America better. That is a consequence of us operating in our power. When we are operating in our power and using our own kind of leadership in that space, then what that does is it creates the opportunity for others to really learn about our work, but it creates an opportunity for us to show, not just show that our own leadership and use our own gifts and skills to make things happen. And so as a result, we created the organization. We decided on 13 states, from North Carolina all the way over to Texas. I had this vision. I knew that this was a really big baby, and I knew that I needed some other midwives. I needed some other mothers, that it needed to be it would be the sisterhood that would bring this into being. And so as a result, I organized 3 other women who serve as anchors. And what the anchors do, it's kind of almost like a board of directors, but we actually are anchoring this work. That all of us come to this process with a long, rich history in philanthropy and community funding and community grant making. We all come with a rich history and understanding of the South and how difficult, and understanding kind of the current infrastructure of groups and organizations and the landscape. And 3, we all come to this process with a deep love for women and girls. And so with that, what we have been doing in the last 6 years is building this mechanism. It is a $100 million initiative that our goal is to actually raise and reinvest, up to $100 million to organizations that serve Black women and girls, to 1, help them build their capacity, 2, to help strengthen the ecosystem of organizations that work with Black girls, and 3, to invest in dreamers, to invest in Black women and girls, almost like R&D, that they are worthy of investment and being able to experiment and be able to try new things, that fundamentally that our work, that our presence on this earth isn't just to be in service of others, but it's also to be in service of ourselves, and that we can be the best solution drivers. We, in fact, are the ones we've been waiting on. And so in this process, what we've done in the last, I'm really excited, that raised $20 million so far. We've been able to invest more than $6 million in grants to over 300 Black-led girl groups, grassroots groups on the ground. We have now funded 550, in addition to that, 550 projects, individual projects, created, envisioned, and executed by Black girl leaders throughout all 13 states in the South. And then we have an annual conference, which will be our 4th annual conference, that has grown from 500 to now we're over 1,400 women and girls and youth workers who come to this conference that's based on STEM. And then we have this amazing bus tour called Our Joy is Our Journey bus tour, that we go to states and we literally have Black girl kind of dream festivals and these different spaces. Our 2 pieces are what is a Black girl's dream, and 2, how can we change our external environment to actually literally be able to make those dreams come true. And so part of our work, that's kind of part of our work, but we do a series of other programs that we're always doing Sage Circles. So every month, the women that are part of the consortium will actually share their skills. If they are excellent grant writers, they do grant writing workshops. They'll do a grant writing workshop. They will actually, we have CPAs or accountants that will actually tell organizations, this is how you can get your books in order. This is what you need to do. There are women who actually are experts or girls on how you organize young women, and they do that. So part of when we say the consortium, it is we're bringing our gifts, our talents, our skills, and our treasures to bear, so that we are actually supporting each other, that we're building and expanding a leadership pipeline of women and girls, because what we believe is put a woman in charge, that literally we are, as we grow and develop, and as we increase our opportunities to be able to use our gifts and be able to experiment and to build, that we have seen the work of women. We believe that we will fundamentally change the world.
Hello, I'm Tracy Charles McGee, and I'm so excited about our guest today, Alilia Bundles, who is an acclaimed journalist, historian, um, so many things, right? A biographer, and she's best known for chronicling her great-great-grandmother, Madam C.J. Walker's life and times. And we know that Madam C.J. Walker is the trailblazing entrepreneur and philanthropist who became one of the first self-made millionaires in America. So today we're going to dive into the philanthropy. So thank you for joining us, Alilia.
Tracy, it's very nice to be with you. I think it does help to have some context about her early life because that informed her choices, her philanthropic choices. So she was born, as some people know, Sarah Breedlove on the same plantation in Delta, Louisiana, where her parents and older siblings had been enslaved. She was born in 1867, first child in her family born free, but she was orphaned at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
She married at 14, had a child at 17,
Wow.
was widowed at 20, and then moved from Louisiana to St. Louis, where her older brothers had moved a decade earlier, really escaping racial violence. And they became barbers, and their barbershop was very near St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church. So those early experiences informed what she did later. She became a major supporter of the NAACP's anti-lynching fund. And while I don't have anything with her specifically talking about the racial violence she observed in Louisiana in the 1870s, I have to think that
Yeah.
there's some connection for her being receptive to that. As a member, still a poor washerwoman in St. Louis in the 1880s and 1890s, it was the women of the African Methodist Episcopal Church who began to mentor her, who were members. She joined the Mite Missionary Society. She was a member of the church. She observed some of those more middle class women, the school teachers and others who were involved in the National Club Women's Movement, the National Association of
Mm-hmm.
Colored Women. So, and also some of the benevolent societies like the Knights of Pythias and the Women's Auxiliary, the Court of Calanthe. So those were the basis, I think, for a lot of her philanthropy. And she always appreciated music. Again, poor washerwoman, but still a good enough voice to be in the choir. Music was all around her. Scott Joplin was, beginning to perform ragtime in the 1890s in St. Louis.
Yes,
So she
yes.
and her daughter both became patrons of the arts. So it's, the anti-lynching activism, it's being in the church, it's women's organizations, and it's the arts.
And she had this coalition of women in her business. How do you think she influenced them to give back?
So I think Madam Walker was able to influence other women once she developed her company because she had observed the church women and the club women when she was really just beginning to discover her own power. And she saw the importance and the value of women collaborating with each other. So as she developed her company, as she started out, selling products to a few women and then traveling and developing a sales force, really an army of her sales agents, thousands of women. And she used the model of the Court of Calanthe, the Women's Auxiliary of the Knights of Pythias, as well as the National Association of Colored Women and the women's religious organizations to create infrastructure. So she
Mhm.
organized her sales agents into a national organization. And at her first convention, national convention in 1917, she gave prizes not only to the women who sold the most products,
Mm.
but to the women who had contributed the most to charity. And she said to the women, I want you to understand that your first duty is to humanity. I want others to look at us and realize that we care not just about ourselves, but about others. And at the end of the convention, the women sent a telegram to President Woodrow Wilson urging him to support legislation to make lynching a federal crime. So she really did both model it herself and empower other women to be activists. So she wanted to take her place. She really, because she had money, because she had developed some financial power she wanted to influence people beyond just the people in her company. And she became more active in politics. Because, you know, at that point, when you have money, people come to you for
Right.
contributions. And so
That's right.
she was happy to make the contributions. But there were times when it was a navigation for her as a woman. Even though the women who were in the National Association of Colored Women were some of the most powerful and some of the most intelligent, well-educated women in America, there was still a lot of sexism, and women were excluded. And one particular example for me is that the war effort, World War One, a lot of Black people were very mobilized. You know, there was some controversy. It's like, why should we, you know, go to Germany and fight when we don't have our rights here? But there
Mhm.
was a school of thought that if African Americans stood up and supported the government, supported the war, that they would be recognized and respected. You know, now there's always that, you know, tricky part with America and how Black people are treated. But that was the sort of the thinking of people like Madam Walker and Emmett Scott, James Weldon Johnson, W.E.B. Du Bois, and she wanted to be a part of that effort. And this is where we are with women, you know, and philanthropy, how we reframe it, that, you know, women were kind of relegated to the women's auxiliary in church, to the missionary society, but those
Mhm.
women were always raising money. You know, and I
That's
love
right.
my good friend Tyrone McKinley Freeman, who's a professor of philanthropy at Indiana University School of Philanthropy. His wonderful
Mhm.
book, Madam C.J. Walker's Gospel of Giving, where he really reframes philanthropy, the history of philanthropy, that it's not just extremely wealthy white people, that it is people in the church, that our community is always through church, through benevolent
That's
societies, through fraternities, through sororities, always given. We always have
mhm.
given.
We're going with the definition of philanthropy as a love of humanity. And so, as you reflect on your family's legacy, how has it influenced your approach to giving back?
You know, definitely. You know, in addition to having these sort of larger than life family members, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't know the details of their life, even though my mother
Mm.
was vice president of the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company. But my parents were both very much, they were community leaders, involved in business, involved in politics, involved in the school board. And so I really had them as my role models for how you live a life of service. And,
Mhm.
you know, I did not have a trust fund, so I did not have millions of dollars to give away, but I had my time, you know, and my talent, and some treasure. And so those things have always been very important to me, that, you know, that you really do need to give back to your community. And I've just been really fortunate to have served on a number of nonprofit boards, and to, you know, and I think all of us find that we get more than we give, even when we give a lot. And so that's just been my approach to how I live my life.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any more questions. Thank you so much. This has been very informative. We're all going to be so inspired. We continue to be inspired, I should say, by Madam C.J. Walker's story and her legacy. And her legacy, of course, is you. And we can't wait to, and we've got a little while to go, but we can't wait to read the book that's going to come out on Alelia Walker. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Who knew an island street vendor with big dreams and small resources could hone her vision into a global brand of music, business, and philanthropy? Today, Rihanna sits at or near the top of almost any creative endeavor she touches. Born Robin Rihanna Fenty, she first groomed her entrepreneurial skills working with her father selling clothes in a stall on the streets of Bridgetown, Barbados. She also drew inspiration from the soca and reggae music that surrounded her and decided to quit high school to fully follow her ambitions. Rihanna's recording demo was shopped to a number of U.S. labels, but once it reached the ears of Sean Jay-Z Carter and L.A. Reid, signing her to a deal at Def Jam was a foregone conclusion. Rihanna's music crossed genres even as she leaned in heavily on her island roots.
She has combined hip-hop, R&B, and rock influences to define her chart-topping sound. And while fans were propelling Rihanna toward record-breaking sales, streams, and award-winning hits, Rihanna set her sights on building an entrepreneurial empire alongside the creative career. Known for her bold, body-positive fashion sense, Rihanna has capitalized on her public image to create a $1 billion-plus net worth in fragrance, beauty products, and lingerie. In 2020, she committed $5 million to COVID-19 response. Super Bowl halftime performer, actor, mother, cultural ambassador, and 6-time Guinness World Record holder, Rihanna truly does it all.
So when we're marching and protesting and posting about the Michael Brown Jr.'s and the Tatiana Jeffersons of the world, tell your friends to pull up.
What I heard from voters this cycle as we went across the state of Florida and engaging voters, especially young voters, they were very excited. We was on the college campuses. We did the bus tour with the Power of the Ballot tour, speaking to young voters, speaking to voters in rural communities. Some that was their first time voting. People, we did election protection, people first time participating in that. Personally, seeing people, young people that I registered actually show up and registered, and also text me their picture with their I voted sticker and how excited and powerful they felt. They said they never felt like that before. So people was feeling the joy. People was feeling the joy and feeling and looking for a positive future. Well, yes, so we across the country, we're excited that we got 2 Black women in the Senate. And one that I really want to lift up, is the sister in Delaware, where she was actually a victim, I want to say, of the January 6th. And I can remember her being on the floor, the camera showing how she was praying for peace on that Capitol floor. And for her to be elevated in the space into the Senate, I am so glad that we got a prayer warrior, a sister. That's the only thing. That was the joy that when I seen that come across, oh my God, come across, the TV that she was elected. I was just so happy. And also, Angela, from Maryland. So now that when our VP was the only senator woman, Black woman, before, now we got 2. So we multiplied. And so I'm glad, because I know that those sisters are strong. They God-fearing women, praying women. So I know that they were not only going to do their duties, but they're going to be seeking the higher power to direct them. And I believe that anytime, and I know personally that anytime that we are in the room, we change the atmosphere. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy about also Monique. I'm not sure if people are familiar with the district attorney that the governor Santos had suspended. But the voters came back and let them know you can't take our vote, and they voted her back in again. So that was a victory, and happy to see that Black women are not stepping back, and they saying it through the races, through the politics, through that we will not be erased. This one is my birthday. I will be celebrating my 60th birthday on November the 20th. So I am going to be intentionally about making sure that I do some rest, that I be around people that celebrate me. I'm going to be around loved ones and other sisters that's been in this movement. Actually, I'm hosting a brunch next week for some of our VIP sisters that's that's been in the trenches here in Florida. But I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm going to Africa. I'm going to South Africa. So I'm gonna get some rest time. After I've spent some time doing my birthday and spending time with my family for Thanksgiving, and then I'm gonna leave and go to South Africa for a week.
Our joy, it's everywhere we are. Low tech and high touch. A smile, a joke, a belly laugh. Warm sunshine, magical sunsets, rainbows in the storm. A shopping spree, a summer picnic, a girl's getaway, a friend's play date, a poem, a book, a prayer. Quiet space from a clamoring day. A Sunday brunch, a champagne toast, a decadent dessert. Soothing, breathing, stretching, or being still. A fast jig, a long walk, a slow dance. Joy is ours. Joy is us. Let's claim it, then own it.